Afternoon all, I'm Attila The Stockbroker, performance poet and musician. I've had a 40-year association on and off with Cherry Red Records and indeed Cherry Red Books. And I'm very proud and happy to say that they've just published my collected works, Heart on My Sleeve. My collected works of 40 years, following on from the 2015 publication of my autobiography, Argument's Yard. Now this book is quite literally the best of Attila The Stockbroker in terms of my poem lyrics and my song lyrics. And if you've ever been to an Attila The Stockbroker gig and enjoyed it, the likelihood is that you'll find a piece that you've enjoyed in this book, because this goes all the way from my beginnings, stuff like Russians and the DHSS, Contributory Negligence, A Bang and a Wimpy, right up to the most recent poetry that I wrote during lockdown. So I'm going to do two poems for you from this book, both family-centred and both opposite extremes. My mum had Alzheimer's for 6 years. I wrote this in frustration about a certain relative who used to come to help. Help she did not. This is called Poison Pensioner. I've tried to work it out, but I just can't see how a cretin like you is related to me. You've just one brain cell and that one's a mess, parroting rubbish from the Daily Express. No, not the Sun. You'd say that was a rag, delusions of grandeur from a jumped up hag. But don't get ideas, you're as thick as a shoe. Poison Pensioner, this poem's for you. I've had it up to here and I'm cutting up rough. Distant relative? Not distant enough. Ever thought of space travel? Prejudiced cow? I'd suggest Uranus, but you're up there right now. You've a monochrome vision of a world that's dead. 1,000,000 Reader's Digests inside your head. I like to put vomit in a cheese fondue. Poison Pensioner, this poem's for you. You worked all your life in the public sector and all you ever did was whine and hector, moan at the people who fought your cause, cheer for the Tories and their union laws. You were born in a council house, you clueless bitch, but you side with the right and you vote with the rich, bowing and scraping to the privileged few. Poison Pensioner, this poem's for you. You've a medal for meddling, that's for sure. If this was my house, then I'd show you the door. But my mum needs help and you're here to see her. So I sit and I listen to your verbal gonorrhea. Right now, I wish I was in her head, because mum won't remember a word you've said. Your compassionate act just got a bad review. Poison Pensioner, this poem's for you. Bossy yet servile. Some combination. Paralysed spine of a lick-spittle nation. Could have been a builder, ended up a tool. Lifelong victim of divide and rule. You're a ragged trousered philanthropist who wasn't even waiting for the boat you missed. You're a turkey voting for Christmas too. Poison Pensioner, this poem's for you. And from the other extreme, both of my family history and my, if you like, political activism, this poem, which I wrote for my stepfather just before he died, and it's called Never Too Late. My father died when I was 10, and when she dried her tears, Mum met you in the choir. She'd known of you for years. I was so pleased when she told me that she would be your wife, and I looked forward happily to a new man in my life. But you were the classical singer who thought rock and roll was junk, and I was the Bolan boogie boy who soon became a punk. You were the civil servant for whom everything had its place, and I was the left-wing activist, out there and in your face. Yes, you were the head of the household, and I was the stroppy kid. We wound each other up for sure. We flipped each other's lid, but later we both learned so much and something new began. And here's a poem I wrote for you, you decent, gentle man. So I went off to my own life, left you and Mum to yours. A few words about football, then the sound of closing doors. But the passing of so many years gave us both time to reflect, and slowly, oh so slowly, we forged a new respect. When you were ill the first time and found it hard to walk, I'd take you to the hospital and we would sit and talk. It felt so right and normal, and it was such a shame that it had taken all this time, both stubborn, both to blame. Because you were the head of the household and I was the stroppy kid. We wound each other up for sure. We flipped each other's lid. But later, we both learned so much and something new began. And here's a poem I wrote for you, you decent, gentle man. When Mum came down with Alzheimer's, 5 years you cooked and cared. And we were round there every day, so many thoughts were shared. Your simple, honest loyalty. The vows you made, you'd keep. No longer the big boss man. No, me, no longer the black sheep. Then came that day in hospital. The end was near, we knew. You told me, I do love you, John. I said, I love you too. You took my hand and squeezed it. Our eyes were filled with tears. The first time that we'd said that, it took 37 years. Because you were the head of the household and I was the stroppy kid. We wound each other up for sure. We flipped each other's lid. But later, we both learned so much and something new began. And here's a poem I wrote for you, you decent, gentle man. It's never too late, never too late, never too late to say you love someone. And if it wasn't too late for me and John, then it's never too late for anyone. Heart on my sleeve, that's where I wear it, always have done. 40 years of the poems and song lyrics of Attila The Stockbroker, out now on Cherry Red Books, available from Cherry Red, from my Bandcamp site and from self-respecting bookshops worth their salt, online and in person, up and down the country. Cheers.